So I hate to disappoint you, but I am not a fully enlightened being, or am I? It is not for us to say who is or isn't enlightened or spiritually awakened or who has made what progress on their path. Especially if you haven't seen someone on their entire path, it's really difficult, nearly impossible to say what progress they've made. But I think it is possible for us to check in with ourselves. And wherever we are on our path, there are signs. Today we're going to talk about 3 simple signs that we can watch for, not so much as measuring sticks, but maybe we can think of them as barometers for how we're progressing on our spiritual path. And at the end of the video, I'll share a simple way that I personally check in with my progress on the path. So these signs are not to be used to judge others or ourselves. It's not to criticize ourselves. We can think of this less as assessment and more of a gentle reflection. And we can use these to humbly notice where we are and where we can grow. We can think about the qualities that we want to cultivate. We can fortify our aspirations. This can simply help us to guide ourselves to the most awakened, wisest, evolved version of ourselves. If you're new here, my name is Parisa. I am a mere mortal, deeply imperfect, but also deeply dedicated to the path of waking up. I make these videos for you to help shine light on your path. I am interested in helping you come home to yourself and become free. So a little about me. I've been practicing and studying mindfulness and meditation in different traditions for 20 years now. I've studied and practiced everything from really clinical, secular mindfulness to Eastern traditions like Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta. I've been in many trainings and many retreats, and I've been really lucky to meet some true masters and what I believe have been really awakened beings in this world. And some of them have been sages in the ashrams of India, and some of them have been elders that I've met walking in the park. I do believe there are awakened beings everywhere to some degree. I feel really grateful to my main teachers who have been Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield. And I feel like for decades I've been standing on the shoulders of giants that have helped me grow on my own path. These have been teachers, these have been books, these have been ancient teachings, and they've also been mentors and friends and peers. I can be a really solitary and private person, and I think it's really important to note how much I've learned and grown because of teachers, mentors, and also community, friends, and peers. This video is dedicated to my peer group. Thank you for being mirrors. Thank you for shining your light out into the world, and thank you for reflecting it back. I love you. So I do believe I've seen some really beautiful, true, and real examples of really awakened beings in the world. And I think I've also experienced beings that project an image and a veneer of being evolved and awakened, and it hasn't been as authentic. There is all of it out there. I think there's definitely this idea that a lot of us have of what a really spiritual person or what a really awakened person is supposed to look like, act like, and sound like. And in my experience, it's just not really like that. I remember the first couple silent meditation retreats that I attended as a younger person in my early 20s. And there was this sense of watching the other more experienced meditators, more seasoned practitioners. And especially when you're on a silent retreat, you know, there's this whole aura of floating around and doing everything super slowly and quietly and like setting everything down as if you're doing everything in slow motion and doing it so mindfully. And I remember thinking that this is the way I should be. And for a lot of it, it was imitating. It was just sort of playing the part of someone who is really mindful and present. And I suppose there's some value in in acting as if, and again, putting on the posture and putting on even the physicality. Because if you watch my videos, you know that I really believe that posture and physicality can really have an impact on our interiority. But also over the years, you kind of learn that it doesn't quite matter. And some of the most open-hearted, awakened people kind of have mannerisms that you maybe wouldn't expect. So all that to say that it really doesn't matter what being a spiritually awakened person looks like from the outside. What really matters is that inner freedom and what it feels like on the inside, and perhaps how we make others feel. Before we get into the 3 signs, let's talk about what we really mean by spiritual awakening or enlightenment. It's a really big term, so I'm going to keep it really short for today. So when we come into this world and we're born in our I feel like I want to start with once upon a time, but when we come into this world and we're born as these human beings, we know that there's a lot of layers and a lot of veils, right? A lot of it is our biology and having this human brain. And what I mean by these veils are we have certain perceptions and certain conceptions of what this all is. And we can objectively know that how we experience the world as these embodied human beings is not quite the way things are. Even our sense of being, for example, a separate being that is completely separate from this chair or that other being walking down the street or any of these other objects or the air around me. The sense that I sort of end at the barrier that is my skin or some boundary like that is really, really strong. But when we really look at it scientifically and we really look at the physics, it starts to get a little bit tricky to know when one object or one being ends and another begins. How do we sort of slice up matter? That's a whole thing that I won't go into anymore right now, but that's just an example of things are not how they seem to us. And as we grow in our families and societies, we also have a lot of layers of conditioning, a lot of stories, also not quite true, also not quite the way things are. So one simple way that I think about spiritual awakening or enlightenment is really the shedding or the peeking through of this veil, this capacity to see through limited perceptions and get closer to the truth of what we are and what this all is. So waking up can really free us from the limitations of the body-mind, can really free us from being caught up in thoughts. Instead of being a slave to our thoughts and believing everything that we think, we can use our thoughts for wise action. It's also possible to not be so knocked around by our emotions and instead have a sense of deep peace, clarity and wisdom, ease and freedom. So those were a bunch of words that hopefully pointed to what I mean in this video when I'm talking about spiritual awakening or enlightenment. And there are stages to this, right? It's not like it happens in one flash and all of a sudden we're fully awake, we have all the wisdom, all the clarity, and we're fully enlightened. I feel like a lot of us have these images in our mind of spontaneous enlightenment that physically happened in a flash of energy and light and was this big dramatic spectacle. But actually it can be quite subtle, it can be quiet. And for most of us, I think it happens in stages and it's raw and it's clumsy and it's imperfect. And there's a lot of stages of difficulty as we are waking up and as we're doing our personal practice to help us progress on our path. It can also be hard. Doubt can arise. We can wonder if we're making any progress at all, which is part of why I wanted to make this video, to really glimpse the progress we're making, to fortify our aspirations, to energize us, refresh our motivation on the path, and our commitment to our personal practice. So yes, it can be slow, it's gradual, and sometimes it's hard, but also there are fruits to enjoy all along the path. It's not like there's just this one prize at the end. And the most important thing to know, what I really want to communicate to you today is that it's possible. It's possible for all of us, including you. Okay, let's get into the list. So the first sign of progress on our spiritual path is kindness, the capacity to be kind. And I think this comes from a couple different things. Part of it is that we have grown in our own awareness and we have grown in our own capacity to notice and understand ourselves. I'm going to use the word kindness here to really encompass care and empathy and compassion. And I know it's asking this one term to hold a lot, but I hope it makes sense that this quality of kindness is really deeply connected and points to all of these other adjacent qualities. So I think kindness really grows as we progress on the path for a couple different reasons. Part of it is because we're really growing in our own awareness and really understand our own hurt and suffering. And the more that we understand that, I think the more that we begin to notice and understand that in others. And naturally, when we notice the suffering of others, the difficulty of others, when we can really understand where it's all coming from, our hearts naturally open up to understanding and kindness. And I even think it helps us understand the harmful behaviors of others. And that doesn't mean that we allow it, but that we understand it. And we can open our hearts and still extend kindness to others. And that includes ourselves and any harmful behaviors of our own. And then the other part of it is, as we really grow in awareness and wisdom, we really glimpse the interconnectedness of all things and all beings. We really begin to feel and really sense that others are an extension of ourselves. So it feels really natural to care for others in the same way that we would care for ourselves. Number 2, equanimity. So equanimity is this quality, I think of it as this quality of not being really bothered by a whole lot. So no matter what the external circumstance, there's this sense of evenness and balance and not being knocked around by things. And again, how does this develop? I think this develops as we're growing in awareness and wisdom. So we have the experience and the wisdom that things are always changing. So it doesn't really make sense for us to hold on really tight and get too bent out of shape for anything. We understand that trying to chase or trying to control things only causes us suffering. So there's a sense of stepping back and allowing things to be, letting go of expectations. We have enough life experience that even when we get the thing or we avoid this thing, it doesn't lead to lasting satisfaction or happiness. So there's this sense of a balanced calm. We also become less identified with things. So again, there's this sense of not being so bothered because there's a spaciousness. Basically, what I mean here by this sign of equanimity is that we're kind of just cool with everything. The third sign to notice is joy. And again, I'm going to ask the word joy to hold not just joy, but this quality of lightness and laughter. I think as we grow on the path, there's this real sense of, again, not holding on to things so tightly, not taking things so seriously. Again, as if we've peeked behind the curtain and kind of seen the reality and seen that things are not the way that they seem. So there's this lightheartedness that we bring to everything. And I think another part of it is the capacity as we grow in awareness to place our attention on the light, to notice the good. And of course, that sparks joy. And you'll notice as I was talking about the 3 signs, there was always this underlying sign of attention, of awareness, of presence. So I won't list that as an official sign. That's like the underlying quality that all these other qualities that we want to grow really sit on top of. The sense of calm, the sense of presence, the sense of wakeful attention that we can bring to everything in our lives. So this was a list of signs that I noticed the most. This was by no means a comprehensive list. If you're interested, there is a traditional list called the 7 Factors of Awakening that comes from Buddhist tradition that I'll link below if you want to check that out. So one thing that's quite beautiful is, yes, we can sort of name and intentionally cultivate each of these qualities individually, but they're all, as we've been discussing, really interconnected. And naturally, as we grow in awareness and wisdom, all of these qualities naturally grow in us too. And even if we don't think that we're explicitly on a spiritual path, just as we move through life and grow in wisdom and mature, these grow in us too. Now, before we wrap, I want to say what is not a sign of progress on the path, and that is perfection. So again, the point is to not be assessing ourselves and judging ourselves and trying to be perfect. And actually, there's a lot of imperfection and a lot of difficulty on the path, and that's a natural part of it. A lot of times it might even feel like we're regressing. And I truly believe that the path is not linear and it's really more like a spiral, which is why sometimes it can feel like we're not moving forward, but you are. So as you've been listening to the video, what do you think? If you really, again, do a gentle reflection and inquire with care, what do you notice about how you've grown on the path? What can you notice with kindness and identify as areas where you still want to grow? And I said I'd share one of the ways that I really check in with my progress personally. So what I like to do is ask myself how I would have handled a situation or how I would have responded to something even a year ago, or definitely 5, 10 years ago. For most of us, we can be really critical with ourselves and really judge ourselves and our progress and how we're growing. And again, we don't want to fall into this idea of productivity and like we're trying to improve ourselves. Really, the way I see spiritual growth is not so much about changing ourselves or improving ourselves. It's really, again, that idea of shedding layers, letting go, kind of softening, and maybe falling back into our more natural state before all of the layers of conditioning. So if you think of it that way, really gently reflecting on maybe a recent difficulty and how you approached it as imperfectly as it might have been, and then compare that to how you might have approached a similar situation, whether internal or external, in the past. It's really easy for us to dismiss our progress. So I hope you really celebrate any progress that you notice, big or small. All right, I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. If you like this kind of video, please do let me know. May you be kind to yourself and others. May you navigate life with ease. And may you live with joy. Take good care of yourself on the path. Celebrate every step of progress. Feel good about choosing media like this. Feel good about spending your time contemplating topics like this. I am so glad you're here. It's good to be on the path together. I love you and I mean it. I'll see you next time.